Ever really stop to think about how much sheer power IT actually holds within a huge global company these days?
Mm,
I mean, it's way more than just, keeping the emails flowing or the servers running.
absolutely. It's really become the core engine, hasn't it? Driving innovation, collaboration.
Exactly. And even surprisingly big sustainability pushes.
Right.
So today, we're going to do a deep dive into exactly that. We're looking at a massive IT transformation led by Jay Kerley, who was the CIO at Applied Materials.
Okay.
We've gathered insights from interviews, his professional background,
Mm.
basically trying to figure out how this, major high-tech company just completely overhauled its IT.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah. So our mission here is to pull out the key lessons, the real nuggets of knowledge. We want to get under the hood of how Applied Materials managed global collaboration, dealt with, frankly, enormous data challenges,
Hmm.
and also how their IT strategy ended up making a big contribution to the company's green goals.
That's a really interesting mix of challenges.
It is. So let's start with the person driving this. How does someone even get ready for something on this scale?
Good question.
Our sources paint a picture of Jay Kerley having this incredibly varied background. Before he retired as CIO back in January 2023, he was corporate VP and deputy CIO at Applied Materials.
Right.
And that job came after like 2 decades of really diverse experience. We're talking pharmaceutical R&D at Abbott.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, apparently managed a team implementing a data system that helped speed up an FDA approval for an HIV/AIDS drug. Fast track approval.
Wow. Okay. So high stakes data management early on.
Definitely. Then he jumped into global logistics, led M&A integration for DHL Americas,
Okay, so completely different sector again. Logistics, M&A, that's complex stuff.
and then brought all that into high-tech at Applied Materials, co-leading this huge IT transformation. He even got picked for CIO Magazine's Ones to Watch list.
You know, what really stands out there is how that mix of experience probably equipped him uniquely for this applied materials role. Well, as corporate VP and deputy CIO, his job covered everything: strategy, planning, operations, infrastructure, development for global information services.
Right, the whole spectrum.
Exactly. And having seen how different industries work, pharma, logistics, tech, it likely gave him a much broader perspective, a different way of looking at the operational and strategic hurdles of such a huge transformation.
And huge is definitely the word. I mean, he co-led consolidating 17 separate decentralized IT groups into one.
17. Yeah,
Yeah.
just think about the internal politics of that alone.
Right. And then they shifted a lot of the contextual work, they called it, to strategic partners and slashed the number of IT vendors from 50 down to just 2.
50 to 2.
Yeah.
That's drastic. It really signals a fundamental shift in how they wanted to operate.
It sounds like a monster task, not just technically, but like you said, culturally. What was the thinking behind uniting all those teams? What was the philosophy?
Yeah, that's a really critical point. It ties into Curley's core belief about IT management. He apparently had this strong view. He said, IT is too critical to be left to the IT guys.
Okay. What did he mean by that exactly?
Well, his reasoning was that if you put business leaders without deep IT ties into those operational IT roles, they often struggle. They might not be close enough to industry standards, maybe too easily influenced by internal pressures or, loudest voices in the room.
Interesting.
It really makes you ask that question for any company, doesn't it? Where should that IT capability really sit? Is it all business context, or do you need that deep tech expertise and industry awareness? And crucially, how do you lend them effectively?
That's a bold stance to take, especially given the potential pushback internally. So what did that mean for the actual, like the nuts and bolts, the infrastructure?
Right.
The sources say that about 3 years before that March 2010 interview we looked at, Applied Materials decided, okay, we're consolidating all IT governance, all technologies, we're taking control worldwide.
Exactly. And that period, those 3 years, were crucial for laying the groundwork, the foundation.
What did that foundation look like?
Well, it included things like a consolidated ERP system, enterprise resource planning.
Right, the big software suite managing core business stuff.
Yeah, finance, HR, supply chain, all that. Plus, they set up a unified strategy, put in place product lifecycle management, or PLM, systems, product data management, PDM, and built core collaboration tools.
Okay.
So, broadly speaking, this wasn't just about installing software. It was about pulling all the different business units together, getting them onto one roadmap, driving consistent processes, common data, common systems across the whole company. That was the goal.
Okay, so they built that foundation. Now, Applied Materials, being this aggressive high-tech player, they wanted more, right? They needed a truly global development platform.
Precisely.
And dealing with things like 3D modeling, huge data sets globally. That sounds like a massive technical puzzle.
Yeah.
You mentioned their existing setup couldn't handle it.
Yeah, that was a key challenge. They needed engineers across the globe to collaborate effectively on these complex designs, often involving very large files. Their infrastructure just wasn't up to scratch for that kind of real-time, intensive work across continents.
So how do they solve that?
This is where it gets really innovative. They figured out a way to deliver a high-performance experience for users who are literally thousands of miles away from the data centers.
High performance, even for stuff that's usually very sensitive to delays, to latency.
Exactly. Now, one source mentioned delays around 150 seconds, which honestly sounds like it might be a misunderstanding or misprint for milliseconds in the context of real-time design.
Right, 150 seconds would be unusable for CAD. Milliseconds makes more sense.
Yes, milliseconds would be the relevant measure for latency-sensitive CAD. But the key achievement, the big picture, was that they effectively globalized their product development. People could genuinely collaborate on complex design across the world, almost as if they were side by side.
That's pretty incredible. The tech needed to make that happen.
Yeah.
Allowing someone miles away to manipulate complex 3D models smoothly.
It really shows how IT can fundamentally reshape how a company innovates and operates.
So, thinking about that global aspect, how did Applied Materials India R&D fit into this? They have a big R&D presence there, right? How did they benefit specifically?
Oh, it was huge for the India team. Absolutely critical. This whole transformation basically empowered their R&D folks with much stronger capabilities, especially for modular design work.
Yep.
It brought India fully onto the global design platform so they could collaborate, contribute at every level. No more just, taking on specific tasks and then handing them off to teams elsewhere.
So more integrated, more direct contribution.
Exactly. They got the unified CAD infrastructure, the unified voice, data, video, everything needed for real collaborative design reviews. This directly helped India R&D innovate on key products, things like solar, LED, crystalline silicon technology.
That's a really tangible impact on innovation capacity.
Okay, let's get into the tech specifics a bit more. What were the key IT and communication tools that actually made this global platform work?
Sure. It was really a multi-layered setup. At the top, they used the Teamcenter collaboration engine.
Teamcenter.
Yeah, specifically Teamcenter Community and Teamcenter Engineering. That acted as their main vault for all the engineering product data.
Okay, the central repository.
Exactly. Then, layered underneath, they had multiple CAD tools, different ones for different visualization needs, depending on the user and the product.
Makes sense. Different tools for different jobs.
Right. And powering the visual side, giving that high-performance experience, was an HP CAD-led infrastructure. Think high-end workstations, graphics capabilities.
Got it.
And tying it all together was their core infrastructure, supported by a global MPLS network.
MPLS, that's the high-speed private network, right? For reliable global data transfer. Precisely. Crucial for that real-time collaboration across continents. And, a key part of the strategy throughout this was establishing this new unified business platform they could actually operate on efficiently.
Okay, so that covers the core product development collaboration. What about just, day-to-day communication across a global team?
Yeah.
Our sources mentioned Cisco Telepresence being rolled out in 7 locations.
He did, yeah. High-end video conferencing.
So there was a catch, wasn't there? Something about how it worked or didn't work so well in India.
Yeah, that's right. The challenge was that to use the telepresence rooms in India, people had to physically come into the office.
Okay.
And given the time zone differences for global meetings, that often made it impractical, less effective. People might have to come in at odd hours just for a meeting.
Ah, right. So the high-end tech wasn't flexible enough for the reality of global time zones.
Exactly. It kind of highlights that issue of needing to adapt technology to how people actually work, the real-world logistics, not just deploying cool tech for its own sake.
So what did they do? How did they shift strategy to make collaboration easier for global teams dealing with time zones?
Well, they pivoted. Their new strategy focused more on integrating tools like Webex and OCS Office Communications Server, Microsoft's thing back then, directly into their network backbone.
Okay, so more desktop-based, more accessible video.
Yeah, exactly. The goal was greater mobility, better remote access, enabling people to effectively work from home to manage those time zone challenges more consistently.
Did that work? especially for the engineers doing complex stuff.
Apparently, yes. They actually did some research internally with their engineering teams, and it confirmed that working from home was successful, even in that demanding CAD environment.
Really, doing heavy 3D CAD rendering from home.
Yep. Powerful 3D rendering plus standard stuff like VoIP calls, all working effectively from home setups.
That's quite an achievement back then. What about mobile phones? Were they used for CAD work at all?
Not so much for CAD, no. Mobile use was mainly for their field engineers, the people out working on repairing equipment or specific tools at customer sites. Okay.
It let them deliver content, maybe access manuals or schematics, and feed information back to a common platform, basically streamlining their work out in the field.
Gotcha. Okay, shifting gears a bit. There's another maybe surprising piece to this whole transformation. The Green IT initiative at Applied Materials.
Yes, that was quite prominent.
The company kicked off a program back in 2008 aiming to slash its overall carbon footprint by 50,000 tons by 2012. That's a pretty ambitious corporate target.
It is, and IT was tasked with contributing significantly to that goal.
How much?
They took on the challenge of delivering 20% of that total reduction. So that's 10,000 tons of CO2 reduction attributed specifically to IT initiative.
10,000 tons just from IT. Wow, how did they do?
Well, the sources show that by March 2010, so just 2 years into that 4-year goal, they'd already contributed to cutting 7,600 tons.
7,600, so well ahead of schedule.
Exactly. Really significant progress. Now, the sources don't go deep into the specific how-to, was it server virtualization, data center efficiency, power management? Right, the technical details aren't there.
But what's clear is that it wasn't just a one-off program. It seems like they successfully moved towards embedding green IT into their culture, into their standard processes, and it was delivering real, measurable results.
What an incredible story this has been to unpack. We've covered this just monumental IT consolidation at Applied Materials, steered by Jay Kerley, figuring out how to globalize product development despite these huge data hurdles.
Right. That global collaboration piece was key.
Then strategically shifting their communication tech to really enable remote and flexible work.
Adapting to how people actually needed to work.
And on top of all that, IT making a major measurable contribution to the company's environmental goals.
It really reinforces that idea, doesn't it? That when you look at IT strategically from a capability perspective, it's so much more than just a support function.
Absolutely.
I mean, this whole case study really shows how strong IT leadership can fundamentally transform an entire business-driving strategy, enabling innovation, and even boosting corporate responsibility.
So, listening to this, what does it all mean for you? I mean, whether you're in tech or a completely different field, this Applied Materials example really demonstrates some powerful principles.
Yeah.
Things like strategic consolidation, enabling genuine global teamwork, building the right infrastructure, even integrating sustainability.
Yeah.
These ideas could apply to challenges in your own work, your own organization, whatever your area is.
It's about thinking strategically about the tools and processes you have.
Exactly. So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. What hidden capabilities, maybe overlooked potential, exist in your own organization or even your field? What could be unleashed if you took a step back and strategically rethought the role of technology, just like Applied Materials did?